Our next speaker is going to be introduced by her mentor, Dr. Richard MacKenzie. Rich is a research ecologist with the USDA Forest Service, Institute of the Pacific Islands Forestry. Over the last 22 years, he has dedicated his life to studying fish, invertebrate communities, sediments, mangrove forests, and streams across the Pacific Islands. He is an expert in all these areas, and we greatly appreciate all the work he's done for those communities and ours. Welcome, Rich.
I just got about 45-minute introductory here for the river. Is Mayfond? We know?
Some maybe, I think BOE's on.
Okay, well then, kabong! That's for Omicron and Unil Tutau, Unil Swell. My pleasure to introduce the next speaker, River Thomas, also known as the Ribs, Riverunskis. That's my favorite. Her names are so cool that the U.S. Embassy in Palau voted her coolest name and coolest person in Palau. It's true.
Story.
It's a true story. I first met River 2.5 years ago. I got the opportunity to move to Palau, and I worked with her at the Division of Forest, Land, and Water. And it was there that I spent many hours exploring Palau's forests and crocodile-infested mangroves with River. And I learned, as I know anybody who's ever worked with River or known her, she's one of the most amazing, awesome people I've ever met. Super fun to work with in the field, super passionate about everything she does, about Palau, about Palau's amazing ecosystems, about her family. And of course, she's very passionate about every dog that has ever stepped foot on this earth. She loves her animals. So, but I was really excited when I heard that she applied for this position, the scholarship, and she got it, because I know that you are going to be one of tomorrow's environmental champions, and we really need that right now. And not just for Palau, not just for Hawaii, but the entire Pacific region. So it's with my pleasure to introduce River Thomas and the amazing work she did in the mangroves. And one last thing, Sawako Kubors.
Oh my gosh, okay. Rich, high praise. That means more to me than you know, because I really look up to you. I can't believe you said that about me. Thank you, though. Yeah, so what Okoburs is, I love mangroves. So that's what Rich said before he left. So I agree with him there. So Bungil swell, ang Clara River ang Garuhol Thomas, and nga Thomas Taro Mavernis Rabe. In Belau, when you are a younger person introducing yourself, you always follow it up by introducing who your mother and father is. As a show of respect for older people in the room that might not know who you are, but upon hearing the names of your parents, can figure out what family you belong to and where you are from in Palau. That's how small it is. It's just great, but also not always great, but mostly great. Today, I wanted to share my internship experience working with Okobors or mangroves and talk to you all about the work I did for my master's in the Tropical Conservation Biology and Environmental Science program here at Hilo. Overall, I wanted to understand the nutritional variability and capacity in dwarf and tall mangroves of Palau, otherwise known as Rhizophora apiculata, on Babeldaob Island in Belau. But before diving into that experience, I want to acknowledge and recognize that each moment I am in Hawaii, she nourishes and gives me with the opportunity to breathe her air, eat from her soils, drink from her waters, bathe in her sun, swim in her oceans, be kissed by her rains, and be embraced by her winds. I further recognize that generations of Indigenous Hawaiians and their knowledge systems shaped Hawaii in sustainable ways that allow me to enjoy these gifts today. For this, I am grateful, and as a guest, I seek to support in the ways that I can the protection of these lands. My home island of Belau is nestled in the Western Pacific Ocean in a region called Micronesia. There are over 300 islands, with 8 being inhabited by people. As shown by the map, it is 950 miles southeast of the Philippines. We are a primarily matrilineal and matriarchal society that believes in the power of women to affect communities. I was raised by incredibly strong and outspoken women that taught me that I had the capabilities to work hard and do anything I set my mind to. And I think that was the solid foundation I needed to pursue the things I was interested in. We are an island that has made great strides in conservation. As with many of our fellow brothers and sisters of Oceania, we have traditional practices that protect our natural resources for sustainable use. And in more modern avenues, our leaders in conservation have established a protected areas network and other conservation areas ranging from land to sea. This kind of narrative of conservation has been prominent for most of my life, so it felt natural for me to be drawn to it. And that's my best friend over there. That's a traditional birthing ceremony, first birth ceremony. They call it an omangat, and they basically celebrate what the mother went through and celebrate her and her child. So I thought I would showcase it to just show how cherished and valued I feel being surrounded by such incredibly strong women and in a culture that uplifts women so much. I would be remiss if I did not orient you. Oh, I missed that one, hold on. Since I oriented you all to my home and where my research occurred, I must also talk about the people in my life. I believe that who I am and the work I do is driven by the environment surrounding me and the people I love. I have been infinitely blessed with a support system that is filled with the most genuine and loving individuals, with many who are not pictured here, but I could only put so many photos on this slide, and trust me, I really tried. I would be remiss if I did not orient you to the four-legged members of my family. Rich was so right about this. My deep love for animals also shaped me. These beautiful souls taught me about love that needed no words and how to have boundless excitement for the things in life that we may sometimes take for granted, like a big bowl of food or rolling around in the grass. My family and friends keep me afloat and are one of my main drivers. They comfort me when I'm sad, cheer me on when I'm trying to accomplish a goal, and pick me back up when I have fallen down. What I accomplish is for them and because of them. I am inspired by so many individuals, both personally and professionally. My grandmother and mother worked incredibly hard and taught me that if I made sure to remember my values, it would not lead me astray. My father, who worked many decades in the environmental sector before his passing, taught me to find the places and the people I was passionate about. He inadvertently guided me into a career in conservation. It was with his help that I met Lux Isaal, the woman, how does this planet thing work? Obviously, I don't know. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Lisa, help me. That, is it okay? Yes, please.
Say no, thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, no, thanks.
Hang on, sorry.
She'll fix it. Thank you, Lisa. Shout out to Lisa, our internship advisor, for dealing with us, with me, especially throughout this time. Thank you, Lisa. I won't point. You guys can infer. I think it's better for everybody that way. Get back to it. Here we go. Okay. So it was with his help that I met Lux Isaal, an applied scientist working in conservation back in Palau. It's the woman with the glasses on. I should have just said that. She was one of my first professional mentors and exemplified what it meant to live as a Palauan scientist. She and my father also ultimately led me to the Division of Forest, Land, and Water Management, or DFLW, in Palau, where I worked primarily with reforesting degraded lands and forest monitoring before graduate school. My colleagues and supervisors became my best teachers, sharing invaluable knowledge about the ecosystems and places we worked in. It was there at DFLW that I first met and befriended Dr. Richard MacKenzie. That's his Palauan name, guys. His passion for science and his love for mangrove forests had a profound impact on me, and I found myself being drawn closer to these beautiful and resilient ecosystems. Slight foreshadowing there, because Rich, as you guys know now, graciously accepted the role of being my mentor in the program. I would also like to mention my program supervisors, Susan Cordell and Amanda Uwolo, who shared this amazing opportunity called the U.S. Forest Service USAPI Graduate Fellowship. Through this fellowship and their unwavering support, I was able to pursue my master's degree here while conducting research in Palau. It was truly incredible to gain so much knowledge here while also contributing to meaningful work in my home islands. My internship work primarily focused on mangroves, and I wanted to provide some important information about them. Starting with defining what they are. Mangroves are woody trees or shrubs found at the land-ocean interface. They grow in tropical and subtropical latitudes, and there are various estimates regarding the number of true mangrove species, ranging from about 50, but if you include other species that live in or near mangrove forests, often called mangrove associates as well as other plants, they can rise up to 80 species. Mangroves can thrive in environments that most trees would find impossible. Salty, oxygen-poor soils that can regularly be flooded by tides. However, mangroves over time have developed adaptations to deal with these factors, such as secreting salt from their leaves, various specialized root structures, such as pneumatophores and prop roots, and viviparity, a unique form of reproduction where the seed germinates while it is still attached to the parent tree, which prepares the seed or propagule to endure the at times challenging areas that mangroves can find themselves in. Mangroves offer a wide variety of ecosystem services and benefits. They are habitats for many kinds of animals such as fish, birds, crabs, and clams, which means they also support local food security. They provide the coastline with natural protection from wind and wave damage, and they can even act as nurseries, feeding grounds, and healing areas for certain animal species. Not only do mangroves support both terrestrial and aquatic wildlife, but they support coastal communities as well. In Papua New Guinea, when women who rely on mangroves have started an initiative called the Mangoro Market Meri program to help women there sustainably manage the mangroves that they rely on. Additionally, mangroves are one of 3 key blue carbon ecosystems, along with seagrasses and salt marshes. Blue carbon refers to the CO2 captured by the world's oceans and coastal ecosystems, which ultimately reduces greenhouse gases. As a result, mangroves play an important role in global carbon cycling, and they also hold recreational, cultural, and inherent value to many peoples across the globe, including Palau. Although providing all those wonderful things I mentioned before, mangroves also face many threats. In the last 20 years, more than a quarter of the world's mangrove forests have been lost due to various anthropogenic and environmental factors. Although luckily that number is slowing down due to a lot of amazing conservation work that's being done around the world in regards to mangrove conservation and restoration. But natural disasters such as typhoons can destroy forests, deforestation for coastal development and other land uses fragment mangrove ecosystems, making them more vulnerable, and land conversion for aquaculture and agriculture can drastically change the landscape of these forests. However, there are many innovative organizations and researchers that are actively working to find ways to support people's livelihoods with fisheries and other endeavors such as ecotourism, while also protecting and sustainably managing mangroves. In Palau, there has been a lot of amazing work that's been done by both local and international researchers in regards to mangrove forests. They have looked at species composition, growth rate, and carbon storage capacity. They have also looked at mangrove sediment trapping capabilities, which have been shown to protect reefs and seagrass from sediment deposition. And they have looked at how mangroves respond to sea level rise, which you can okay, hello.
Turn this off.
It did. Is it back on?
Did try to steal the batteries from the other one.
Yeah, we try that. Put that right. Oh, yeah, I think.
Marathon sessions. River.
No worries.
Yeah, let's grab this one. It's probably the-
How was the pizza, guys? Good? Thanks.
No worries, sorry.
No.
You can enjoy these photos. There's Rich over there. He's the guy in the hat on the right side, or your left. We kayaking into mangroves.
We were all like, that's you with the hat.
I mean, I'm also wearing hats, so.
Yeah.
We're going to have proper gear when you go into the mangroves, guys.
What kind of gear? Like hats. This one, long sleeves, long pants, long socks. They're really helpful. Keeping the mud out. Okay. So, researchers have also looked at how mangroves respond to sea level rise, with one way being the use of rod surface elevation tables, or RSETs, which you can see me and my colleague Skylar attempting to read to monitor forest floor elevation. There are about 18 species of true mangroves and mangrove associates occurring in Palau that make up 14,082 acres. These forests account for 24% of Palau's total carbon stock, while only taking up 10.7% of the total land area. What really puts it into perspective for me is that mangroves the size of a baseball field can sequester enough CO2 to offset 7 round-trip flights between Palau and Hawaii, which is pretty incredible. Mangrove forests can be classified into several types based on location, structure, and environmental conditions. But for the purposes of this presentation, I will be talking about these 5 main types. Fringe mangrove forests are found along open bays and lagoons where they receive full sunlight and are regularly flushed by tides. Overwash mangrove forests are basically where the entire forest is an island that becomes completely inundated during high tide. So they're isolated from the mainland and terrestrial predators, which makes them ideal nesting grounds for many bird species. Riverine mangrove forests are located within river floodplains near the coast and are strongly influenced by seasonal changes. Basin mangrove forests are found further inland, often in inlets, deep bays, or coves, where water movement is more restricted. And finally, dwarf or scrub mangrove forests, which are characterized by their short stature, with canopy heights typically under 5 feet. Although they contain the same species as other forest types, their stunted growth is a result of environmental factors. Dwarf mangroves are sometimes viewed as less important and the first choice for land clearing compared to other mangrove forest types because they have stunted growth. However, studies have shown that they store just as much carbon as tall mangroves due to their immense below-ground productivity. There are various theories as to why dwarf mangroves display stunted growth, such as soil depth, rocky soils, salinity, and nutrient limitation, which is the focus of my research. As mentioned previously, different mangrove species can be dwarf mangroves, one of those being Bngaol, the mangrove species I am interested in. It is mainly found in riverine interior and fringe areas. This really cool Pokemon card that one of the DFLW interns, Rose, made showcases cool facts about the tree. It is also sometimes referred to as the prince of the forest. When its propagule or fruit falls off the tree, the flower at its base remains and it looks like a crown. And yes, it is also Rich's Palau name and he has definitely lived up to it. The DoD was able to capture LiDAR imagery of Babeldaob Island, and a pattern emerged in the mangrove forests. There are tall mangroves in the interior and along the edges, so that's like the green you see, I have that arrow that points to tall. And a band of dwarf mangroves sandwiched in between, that's the areas in blue. And that entire pattern circles the island. And the dwarf band of mangroves consists of different species, but a large number of them are Bngaol. We were very curious about what could be causing this, and that was the jumping point of this project. So there was a theory that nutrients from the ocean were being delivered to the tall mangroves on the exterior, and nutrients from runoff were being uptaken by mangroves in the interior. But the mangroves in the center were too far from either end and were nutrient limited, thus demonstrating stunted growth. I wanted to figure out what the limiting nutrient of the dwarf mangroves is, specifically for Bngaol, by looking into nitrogen and phosphorus, which are essential nutrients that support mangrove growth and function. With the support of, and I had, sorry, and I had wonderful host organizations that provided me with so much support and guidance throughout my project and internship experience. In Hilo, I was hosted by the Institute of Pacific Islands Forestry, otherwise known as IPIF, where I processed and analyzed much of the data. And in Palau, I had the Division of Forest Land and Water Management, or DFLW, who supported me while conducting fieldwork during summer and Christmas time. It was really great to be surrounded by individuals I had worked with that had become family, but also meeting a lot of new scientists who had so much knowledge and information to share. Well, with the support of one of Rich's colleagues from the Coral Reef Research Foundation, we were able to select 4 study sites across Babeldaob Island. As showcased by the map, we chose 1 site on each side of the island in the upper region and 2 sites in the lower part of Babeldaob. Northeast Ngarath, West Kermlangui, Southeast and Southwest Irai. Each site had 2 plots, a tall plot and a dwarf plot that was fairly close to it for a total of 8 plots. I am very grateful to the private landowners and protected areas network rangers and staff for allowing us to enter these spaces and for supporting this work. In the tall mangroves, we had a 5-meter radius plot where data collection occurred. And in the dwarf mangroves, due to the sheer density and difficulty in navigating, we set up a general plot as best we could that had enough space for data collection to take place. We did not want to disturb or cut the mangroves as much as possible. We wanted to look at tree growth, so we measured DBH over time. We also collected leaf litter to estimate biomass production. In addition, we took soil cores from our plots to learn more about below-ground carbon storage. We hope to gain insights into root productivity by collecting root samples and explore nutrient dynamics by gathering paired green and senescent or yellow leaves to assess nutrient resorption, which is the main focus of what I'll be sharing with you all today. That's a crazy time lapse, but I wanted to take a moment to share my deepest gratitude for the field team and staff to help me collect and process this data. Oli, Rose, Skylar, Rich, Gusta, Aloy, Chief, Omokra, and Layal, as well as the Deep Pass crew who let me use their flatbed to go to the sites. Thank you to Rob and Flint for offering so much support at IPIF, and to all the staff at IPIF who smiled at me and made me feel like a part of the team. You don't know how much all of that meant to me, and this just showcases that it takes a village. And I'm really thankful for mine. And thank you to my mom and little brother who I volunteered to organize and prepare field equipment, and then samples, and also maybe some lunches for the team. I wouldn't be here without all your help, which is exemplified in these photos. And that time lapse of me is actually me trying to take out a root bag that I mentioned before. So when we took out the soil cores, we took a mesh sock and filled it with sand and moss. And then we placed it in the cavity where the soil core was taken, and then secure that to a prop root with a fishing line. And then our plan was to come back in about 5 or 6 months, retrieve the root bag, and see if we could sift out the roots and then possibly look at root productivity. So that's still in the works. I'll keep you guys updated on that. Being in the mangrove forest can be tiring, difficult to navigate, and a little messy. But the beauty of these forests, as I hope I have showcased through these photos, do not do these ecosystems justice. It is an incredible experience to be present in these places. Now moving on to the paired green and yellow leaf samples, which we use to look at the nutrient content and variation in this experiment. Nutrient resorption is the process by which plants reclaim nutrients from their leaves before it senesces or falls off. It is basically like the mangrove tree is recycling valuable nutrients. I used a nutrient resorption calculation pictured here, where X could be either phosphorus or nitrogen. This calculation gave me the nutrient resorption efficiency of the paired leaves, which came from the same tree. This is the percentage of the nutrient that is withdrawn from the leaf before the mangrove drops it. I also took photos of the freshly picked yellow and green leaves and later processed them in ImageJ to determine their surface area, which I use later on to adjust the nutrient content per leaf. My data was not normally distributed, so I ran Crustal-Wallace tests, which is a non-parametric alternative to a one-way ANOVA. This graph showcases that there is a statistically significant difference in phosphorus content between dwarf and tall mangroves. with tall mangroves having higher phosphorus content across the board. When I looked at nitrogen content, the values did not differ significantly between dwarf and tall mangroves. Additionally, when I looked at the relationship between site, so that is the plots like Southeast Irai, West Ngurmlungwi, when I looked at site and nutrient content for both phosphorus and nitrogen, it was not significant either, indicating no site-based differences. I also wanted to compare the nutrient resorption efficiency. So basically how much of either nutrients, either phosphorus or nitrogen that the mangrove was trying to take back before the leaf was to drop, and how they differed by site or type being dwarf or tall mangrove. For percent phosphorus resorption, not adjusted for leaf surface area, there was a statistically significant difference between dwarf and tall forests, with dwarf forests having higher percent phosphorus resorption efficiencies. And even with adjusting for leaf surface area for accuracy, the results were still statistically significant, with dwarf mangroves having higher percent phosphorus resorption efficiencies. For the case of percent nitrogen resorption efficiency and forest type, it was not significant. And it was not significant except for percent nitrogen resorption that didn't account for leaf surface area. But when I did account for that leaf surface area, it was no longer statistically significant. The results do showcase that tall mangroves have higher phosphorus content in their leaves when compared to dwarf mangroves. There was nutrient resorption variation between forest type, that being tall or dwarf, and phosphorus resorption showed stronger differentiation than nitrogen overall, with dwarf mangroves having higher percent phosphorus efficiencies. Additionally, site or location does not have an impact on nutrient resorption. Based on this data, phosphorus is likely the limiting nutrient within the dwarf mangroves. Besides my project, I was able to join in other activities at both my host organizations. At IPIF, I joined Rob when he went to monitor streams. Along with TUI, I also attended the Pacific Islands Forestry Executive Committee meetings, where state foresters from across Micronesia and the Pacific came together to talk about issues, challenges, and collaborative ways to move forward within their own unique contexts. I also had really engaging conversations with the scientists there about study design and varying methodologies that if I had a chance to continue this work would probably be very helpful to incorporate. Last summer, when I was home doing field work, I also assisted with DFLW related activities, like providing agroforestry species to landowners and planting native trees near a degraded watershed. I was also able to present the work they did on the wood wilt, or a tree wilt that is affecting an endemic tree in Palau. I presented this work at Palau's 4th National Environmental Symposium. All these experiences at IPIF and in DFLW helped me to get to know people better, and I offered help to these organizations that have given me so much assistance, and that has meant the world. So for some takeaways, overall, the study demonstrated that phosphorus is likely the limiting nutrient in dwarf mangroves. This is supported by their lower leaf phosphorus concentrations and higher phosphorus resorption efficiencies, suggesting that dwarf mangroves are actively conserving phosphorus to cope with nutrient-limited conditions. This is also supported by other studies who have found similar patterns. One study in Belize found that the dwarf mangroves there were also phosphorus limited. A paper by Dangermond and Feller, 2013, looked at nutrient limitation in a rare mangrove in Panama and found the same to be true about dwarf mangroves there. Reflecting on these last 2 years, one question has come to mind. What does it mean to be a better scientist? I have received lessons on this from all aspects of my internship experience, from my teachers and school curriculum to interacting with the phenomenal people at my host organizations here in Hilo and back at home, as well as the people I met when attending work days or doing projects, and especially my TCBES 2023 cohort. Each has given me a lesson about what it means to be better and do better. And so far, my answer is loving what you do, doing what you love, and being good to the places and people you meet along the way, and I'm getting emotional. All right. Um, in a more tangible scale, next steps could involve refining the study to incorporate aspects that uh, uh, due to time constraints couldn't be completed, and possibly increasing plot numbers to create an even more robust data set. In terms of next steps on a larger, more philosophical scale, I have chosen these 3 photos. The first photo represents reflection, which is similar to this moment now, looking back and assessing what went right and what could have been done better. The next photo is a channel leading out into the world in the hopes that we can continue to share the resilience and importance of mangrove forests to audiences small and large. And the last photo, me holding that root bag like a baby to represent nurturing my love for the environment and my commitment to standing alongside the amazing individuals I have met in order to protect the people and places we hold dear. This is dedicated to my dad, Tomas Caro, the best man I ever knew. Always had the biggest smile on his face and wore an even bigger heart on his sleeve. Thank you for teaching me that kindness is the best way to operate in this world. Your memory reminds me of this every day. Any questions?
I have one.
Nathan.
Incredible talk. I'm not too familiar with mangroves. So is this species that you did your study on, is it endemic or indigenous to Palau?
Mangroves are native to Palau. Yeah, so they've been there. The earliest recordings are like from an account from one visiting scientist, and that was in the early 1900s. But they're also present in legends and proverbs in Palauan culture, referencing mangroves. So I think they've been around as long as probably people can remember. Yeah, but all mangrove species are they're native to Palau. Looking at you, Rich. Lauren.
That was so great. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. So what kind of management recommendations would you give with your new findings of phosphorus?
Oh, wow. Very forward thinking, Lauren. That's where we should be at. But for what I can say now, I feel like I mean, there are people doing mangrove restoration around the world, but that can be sometimes difficult to do. In Palau, I feel as though the mangrove like reforestation is not necessarily something we are kind of discussing as of yet. It's more like, let's work on protecting and conserving the mangroves and the beautiful ecosystems we do have. Let's get people excited about being in the mangroves and seeing the value that they hold. I mean, many people see it, but translating that to the general public and just reminding people, because sometimes when you have something, you kind of take it for granted until it's a little too late. So I think the goal with these kinds of studies is to create a deeper understanding of our ecosystems so that we may better be able to serve them when something arises, you know, in the future. I hope that answered your question. Ariel, and then
Talk was amazing, River. That was an amazing job. I had a question about the sites that you collected your data. How far into the mangroves were they? Like how far from like where you got to them via boat or land?
it varied. So like for some sites, they weren't very far. Like for one particular site in Irai, we asked the landowner if we could kayak off from his private dock. And then the mangroves we visited there were only a few, like we just had to kayak a few hundred meters down the river, which was, down the channel, which was so much easier than other times where we've had to go through the mangroves. So, so some places not very far from, like point of like, you know, like land. And then in other places like in Ramlungoy, before we found out that you could kayak there from the opposite way, we walked like 800 meters down to the plot. And then we usually find the tall plot first, and then we kind of like assess where the dwarf plot is from it. We don't mind that the dwarf and tall plot they don't have to be very far. We prefer if they were like slightly closer together so that we could more more accurately say that it was because of this limiting nutrient instead of another environmental factor, since they have basically the same, in terms of other aspects, environmental surroundings, yeah.
And it's really hard to walk through the dwarf mangrove.
Oh, yes, and the dwarf mangroves, guys, where did I put that picture of? Oh, gosh. I'm gonna find it. So, yeah, I was up here. Like you can barely see. Like that's us in the dwarf. And imagine Rich being 6 foot tall. It wasn't easy for him. And it was still hard for me, and I was like a foot short of him. So yeah, it's definitely difficult. Like sometimes you just walk through, like at one point I would be so tired, I would just kind of like barrel through it, but then I would bounce back because they're pretty strong and resilient themselves too. So I would just be like, whoa. And then I'm like, but yeah, it was very dense in the dwarf mangrove. So it was just hard to even walk through it, to even set up like stuff like leaf litter traps or put in the root bags, and especially taking the soil cores, because we had no like upward mobility, so to speak. Yeah, any other questions? Oh, yeah.
What inspired your project on work? And also, what were those mounds and the reflection?
Oh, reflection picture.
Like the very last, one of the last slides.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna go there. Those on your left? Or, yeah. Those are pneumatophores, so they're like the roots of this mangrove called Sonaratia alba, or we call it urur in Palau. So they're basically like roots that are exposed, and it's kind of like an adaptation so that, although they're being inundated with water, they have lenticels on the pneumatophores that can be like, helping the roots get breathe and stuff. I'm sorry, Mom. Are you listening? I love you. Flint, please go ahead.
I'm just curious, first, fantastic talk. Thanks so much for sharing all that you shared. I really appreciate it. And your information is really interesting. I just was curious, do you have any ideas about the why of that phosphorus limitation that you were seeing in the tree? You maybe implied something about maybe the available phosphorus getting already taken up by forest in front or behind those forest forests. But is any other insights about that phosphorus limitation that you found? What's causing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think, from my data currently and my understanding, I only know that it's likely to be phosphorus limited. As to possibly why, besides distance from like available nutrients, I mean, it could be the other theories about why mangroves demonstrate stunted growth. Like maybe the soil is also shallower in the center, in the middle. Maybe there was used to be like a fringed coral reef or something many thousands of years ago. It could be salinity. We didn't look at salinity because of time and, equipment constraints, but that could be a way we could refine the study if we did continue it, is including other variables to see if we can find a stronger relationship between the limitation and the dwarf mangroves, or if there's like a whole other, it could be a whole suite of things. So the world is our oyster, that one. Oh, and Ioana, I feel like I didn't answer another question you had. Oh, yeah, that was probably no problem. Honestly, it's like a whole range of things, I would say, and I'm also talking to Rich, who is my mentor, but also my colleague and also like an incredibly dear friend of mine. And also one of my heroes in conservation. You inspired me because I was always drawn to the natural environment and I worked in forests and I loved forests, and I thought mangroves were great before I met Rich. Yeah, they were fine. But then we went and he would just be so excited about, we're like dirty and muddy. It is like 3 p.m. We still have to walk back out and kayak back to the car. And he's like, do you hear that? That's the sound of the shrimps. They're snapping. And I'm like, those moments, it gave me a greater understanding of what it means to really appreciate the places that you're in and to see him, still be tired and still appreciate those places. It just, I don't know, it made me think that I want to be resilient like that, and I want to be resilient like a mangrove. So, yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed that it happens. Oh, Kelly.
Slash question in chat from Ernest saying perhaps have DFLW spearhead effort to educate elementary schools, specifically mangroves to increase knowledge and importance about mangroves for the younger generation.
Wow, that sounds like a really smart and also beautiful woman. That's my mother. I love you, Mom. That's a really great idea. And I think, Rich and other local partners back in Palau definitely see how critical that is as a component when they started their mangrove consortium together. A large and key component was, how do we share that love and respect for the mangroves, not just to lawmakers and decision makers who can change policy, and not just to our peers who, can share it to other adults, but how do we instill that love and respect for mangroves in children? Because those children are gonna grow up and be the next leaders of conservation. And when we, take a seat, they're gonna take up the mantle. And if they already have that love for mangroves and that respect for ecosystems and that drive to protect these places, then I think we have one less thing to worry about.
All right,